Conservation Agency. This is February 8th, 2023. Will you please join me in the salute to the flag? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May we have the roll call, please?
Incoming Director Engler?
Here.
Director Huffer?
Yes.
Incoming Director Newman?
Here.
Director Nichols?
Yes.
Chair Skay?
Here. So our first order of business is to have the oath of office administered to our two new members from the City Council, Mr. Newman and Mr. Engler. Mr. Attorney will do that. Oh, City Clerk will do that.
Thank you. Please stand in front of this podium and I'll turn this microphone to you guys. Please raise your right hand. Do you please state your name?
I, David Newman. I, Bob Engler.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which you are about to enter?
I do. I will.
Excellent. Please sign your oaths. Mr. Newman, Mr. Engler. There you go on the second line. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And welcome aboard, gentlemen. So our next item is public comments, and we have three public speaker cards coming up. Mr. Christopher Price.
Hello, my name is Chris Price. I'm an active recreation user, resident of Westlake Village, and I enjoy the open space daily with my family. The open space was so important to me and my family, we decided to purchase our home within walking distance of our open space, the Hidden Meadow Trailhead. First, I'd like to express my gratitude to the board for your public service, a warm welcome to our new board members, and a sincere thank you for this opportunity to speak. As you may notice, this meeting has a few more attendees than normal, and that is because the mountain biking community is coming together to constructively help our open space thrive. The genesis of this group started with a bunch of individuals attending meetings to learn how our open spaces were managed after a couple of incidents involving mountain bikers. After learning more at these meetings, discussing challenges and concerns with our community, and experiencing similar open spaces that have strong trail alliances, we felt it was beneficial to start a trail alliance to collectively voice our interests. Please let me formally introduce the Ride and Develop Trail Alliance, also known as RAD. We are currently working on our nonprofit status and hope to have further updates soon. The RAD Trail Alliance is an energetic group of mountain bikers that love to ride bikes and build great trails. We believe in finding a balance between recreational needs, land preservation, and resource conservation. Our mission is to maintain, enhance, and develop the Conejo Valley and surrounding trail systems through community engagement, collaboration, and education. We strive to serve trail users of all skill, abilities, and interests because we believe everyone should enjoy our open spaces. Our vision is to have a connected and accessible trail network that serves as a gateway to our recreation, nature, and appreciation. We envision our area becoming a destination for outdoor enthusiasts by having a world-class trail system supported by innovative trail builders, public land manager partnerships, and sustainable practices. We have representation here today from our trail users, local businesses, the recreation industry, nonprofits, Conejo Valley students, all looking for ways to enhance our trail system. Support our local businesses, and see the community benefits of embracing the mountain bike culture that permeates so many aspects of our cities. We encourage the board to think of us as it applies to the original city general plan and the COSCA strategic vision. Shortly, you'll hear a few more perspectives from our founding members. Thank you for the time and looking forward to working with you all. Special thanks to Brian Stark, Anna Huber, and Matt Kuba and COSTAC for listening and educating us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Price. Next up is Brusa White. Brusa White.
I got my name butchered, but not that. Hello, everyone. My name is Brisa. I am an avid hiker, mountain biker, and trail runner. The Conejo Open Space is wonderful, and I really appreciate all COSCA has done to ensure that the community has access to the green ring around our city. The access to open space is not only vital to the mental health of the community, but it moves members of the community to see the value in protecting nature for future generations to enjoy. Rad Trail Alliance was formed to address the concerns of a growing segment of trail users. As a trail runner, my desires and expectations of trail conditions are different from those as a mountain biker. As a mountain biker, I am adverse to ruts, appreciate good line of sight, and desire to have trails that facilitate the growth of my skills. As mountain bikers, we are asking COSCA to hear our values out and to work with us to find ways in which to facilitate the growth of our community. Rad Trail Alliance is asking COSCA to let us participate in the maintenance of our trail system. 2 annual volunteer days a year is simply not enough. If you've ever tried to fill a rut in the middle of summer, you know how important it is to align your trail maintenance with the whims of nature. And it is nearly impossible for a huge volunteer body to organize around the weather. In my experience, mountain bikers are the most attentive group of trail users when it comes to trail conditions. We have a lot to offer COSCA, should COSCA be willing to give the green light on extracurricular trail maintenance. We are also asking COSCA to consider our vision to create a trail exclusively for mountain bikers. This trail would be maintained by volunteers from our community and supported by our local businesses. This is important for us, not only because the enjoyment we know it will bring us as individuals, but also because of the greater growth of community and well-being we know it will foster. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. White. Next up is Ben, I don't want to butcher this, Kreinches.
Hello, my name is Ben Krensis, and I'm a junior at Newbury Park High School, a founding member of the Rad Trail Alliance, and also the Newbury Park High School mountain biking team's varsity captain. I first started mountain biking at a summer camp in 4th grade held by Peter and Dorothy Sullivan, which led me to joining the high school team in 6th grade. Over the past 6 years, I have learned our open space like the back of my hand, ridden every trail possible, developed proper trail etiquette, and grown as an athlete and a person. I have also gotten the opportunity to ride and race in various locations throughout California and across the country, such as Winter Park, Colorado. These experiences have opened my eyes to a greater vision for our trail system. Overall, I want us to have the best trails to develop our riders and progress our athleticism. Currently, our team travels several hours for races, events, and more progressive trails. And I believe we can do better with our open spaces. I know there were some initial discussions with COSCA prior to COVID about creating a trail or infrastructure to support a race, but to the best of my knowledge, I haven't heard about any progress. I think we can all work together to create a more progressive and sustainable trail system with better infrastructure to support our team and other recreational users, which is why I'm involved with Rad Trail Alliance. We currently have over 125 kids on the high school mountain biking team that would all benefit from having a stronger trail infrastructure and maybe even a local competition. I know I may not be able to see every wish come true during my remaining time with the team, but I hope the current 6th graders on the team might see my vision come true. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ben. We appreciate your comments. We can't discuss them at this time. They're not agendized, but we really appreciate you all being here and providing that input.
Madam Chair, could I just make a comment?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this is Chair Skay mentioned, because it's not on the agenda, we really can't converse back and forth. But I just wanted to mention, I'm just thrilled to have you all with us tonight. Often we don't have a lot of people here, and I think it's because people just take our open space for granted, that it's just out there to enjoy, and it just kind of happens by itself. And it's usually when something doesn't go right, people come to complain, and it's usually a couple people. But to see a group that's self-engaged is very encouraging. And I know we have heard from staff that you've been working with them and appreciate that. And I know we were trying to kind of transition from just being an owner of open space to actually being actively engaged. I know Matt Kubas could probably tell you exactly all that they do every day. But I just want to say thanks for coming, and I know you are speaking with our staff. I want to encourage that, keep that communication open, and they will work with us. And then if something does come on the agenda where we can actually, work together and have a discussion, open discussion back and forth. But again, just want to thank you all for being here. And I don't know if you're all here for that or not, but nonetheless, obviously there's a handful of you. Just thank you for being here. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Let's go to the consent calendar, please. Do we have a motion for approval of minutes from the November 9th meeting?
I'll move
Director
approval of
Heffer.
minutes.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Director Nichols. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions or, yes, Director Kim?
I'm sorry, I will abstain.
All right.
I as well.
Two abstentions or?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, now to action items. First up is election of board chair and vice chair. And is there a staff report on this? And also appointment of the board secretary.
We have a staff report on it in our packet. Here we go. Good evening. Thank you for your patience there, grabbing the staff report. As is customary with the COSCA board at the beginning of each year, our first February meeting, we do elect a new chair and vice chair. And that's in accordance with the provisions of Article 8 of the COSCA Joint Powers Agreement. So we have listings of the current and past board chair and vice chair in your staff report, and I will turn it over to the board to conduct that election.
Are there nominations for chair? Director Heffer.
I'd like to nominate Director Nichols.
Okay, we have a nomination for Director Nichols to be chairperson. Are there any
I'm sorry, were you calling for chair or vice chair?
chair?
Oh, I'm sorry. I would like to nominate Chair Skay.
Okay, well, thank
Sorry.
you. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor of myself as chairperson, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions or nays? Thank you. Now let us go to a nomination for vice chair. Mr. Heffer.
Yes, I would like to nominate Director Nichols as vice chair.
Very good. Any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll second that motion. And all in favor of Director Nichols as vice chair, please say aye.
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 Very good. Yeah, we typically have rotate between a city council member and a park board member for vice chair. Right. Next item is the annual financial report for fiscal year 2021. I'm sorry, I go back. We need to appoint a board secretary. And Mr. Stark was appointed last time. Do we have a nomination for board secretary?
I would like to continue with that exercise and nominate Mr. Stark to continue in that role.
Okay. Any other nominations? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
All right. All in favor of Brian Stark as the board secretary, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Now we'll go to the financial report for fiscal year 2021-2022.
Thank you. Tonight, on behalf of the city's finance department, Caressa Gomez will present the annual audit report.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Caressa Gomez, as Brian said. I'm the accounting supervisor for the accounting division in the finance department for the city of Thousand Oaks. I will be providing a summary of COSCA's financial report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. COSCA's net position increased $3 million to $90.1 million at fiscal year end. Program revenues increased 1.2 million compared to prior fiscal year, primarily due to 0.9 million in capital grants and contributions and 0.4 million increase in operating grants and contributions. General revenues remained consistent at 0.1 million. Program expenses remained relatively consistent between fiscal year 21-22 and fiscal year 2021 at 2.2 million, as the increase of 0.4 million in maintenance and operations was offset by 0.4 million decrease in land parcels donated to the Conejo Recreation and Parks District in the prior fiscal year. COSCA ended with $10.4 million in cash and investments that is held for future open space acquisitions and maintenance. This is a slight decrease of less than $40,000 compared to prior fiscal year. Capital assets increased 3.1 million for an ending balance of 79.7 million. And that is all I have in updates for you. Any questions?
And this is a receive and file.
Yes.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Next up is a First Amendment of Purchase and Sale Agreement with escrow instructions for assessor parcel numbers as listed in the agenda. And this is between Conejo Open Space Conservation Agency and Andre G. Metzger. We have a staff report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I have a slide for a slide presentation. I'll run this map up while I present. The item before you tonight is an amendment to an existing purchase agreement executed on December 13th of 2022 between COSCA and the seller Andre Metzger. The original agreement was for the purchase of 2.87 acres in the South Ventura Park area. The area to be purchased consisted of 3 full parcels and a portion of a 4th parcel. The intent of the seller at that time was to convey the remainder of the partial lot to the adjacent landowner. After the execution of the purchase agreement, it was determined that the remainder property to be conveyed to the neighboring landowner would have become an illegal lot if COSCA had purchased it via grant deed, so it could not be conveyed legally. In consultation with the seller, it was agreed that the partial lot would be removed from this current transaction, and the seller will apply to the county for a lot line adjustment to create a legal division that could facilitate COSCA's purchase of the partial lot and the legal conveyance of the remainder in a separate transaction. The 2 maps you see up there, if you see on the left map on the left side of it, there's a portion of a parcel illustrated there, and on the map on the right, that's been removed. So we're just looking at those 3 parcels now. The effect of the proposed amendment would reduce the area to be acquired to 2.76 acres. So what we're really chopping off is about 4,441 square feet. So it's not a vast area. The purchase price reduction for the project is prorated by the square foot for the 4,441 square feet that's being withdrawn. The adjusted purchase price is $289,333, and that's a reduction of $10,667. All other conditions of the purchase agreement will remain in effect. Staff recommends approving the First Amendment to the purchase contract and intends to bring a subsequent purchase agreement for the partial lot at a future date. With that, I'm available for questions.
Questions, Mr. Stark? Oh, no. Okay, then we have a motion then to accept the staff recommendation. Oh, I'm sorry. Moved by Director Newman. Do we have a second?
I would second.
And seconded by Director Engler. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions or nays? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you very much. And so we're on to information items. This will be a verbal report on electric bicycles and vehicles on COSCA open space. Mr. Stark?
That will be me again. And I have a slideshow for this presentation as well, which I hope I didn't just go completely out of order, which I did. Where does that get me? Oh, I guess I just got to keep going past here. Everyone got to see it in reverse. That means it has a happy beginning. Electric transportation is evolving at a rapid pace, and there are a growing number of vehicle types now on the market. As residents adopt these vehicles, we're seeing more of them being used on COSCA open space. It's clear from some of these vehicles that many residents are not aware of which vehicle types are permitted on COSCA trails and which are not. This presentation is intended to explain COSCA's vehicle policies, bicycle and e-bike policy, and share the challenges in enforcing current policies and to recommend policy clarification that will help the community better understand vehicle use rules on open space. For our current policies, we define a vehicle as written here, so any device that can be drawn over land, excepting devices moved by human power or exclusively upon rails. Last I checked, we do not have any trains on COSCA open space, so and we're not planning any. But the key here of differentiating a vehicle from something that isn't considered a vehicle is human power. This is our vehicular trespass ordinance. And I'm showing this to you basically because the takeaway here is that the primary modes of access to open space are on foot, horseback, or bicycle. But we also do make sure to make the exception that single rider electric vehicles that are adapted for use for people that do need them for access, those are permitted on COSCA open space. This is our current bicycle policy. It's pretty straightforward in discussing that bicycles are allowed. You'll find though that bicycles are, if you tie it back to the definition there of vehicle, bicycles are clearly not a motor vehicle or a vehicle in our policy. Losing our lights. But one word that you don't see in any of our policies is the word e-bike. And I think that's what leads to some of the confusion about what it is. So, what is an e-bike? Well, the California Vehicle Code, Section 231, defines a bicycle. And in California, specifically, they say an e-bike is a bicycle. Now, what is an e-bike? California's Vehicle Code Section 312.5 defines what is legally considered an e-bike, and vehicles not meeting these definitions are not e-bikes. So they fit into other categories. At this point, I'll direct you to the graphic because this is where the state defines different classes of e-bikes, and I think this is something that the public's not necessarily broadly aware of. But a Class 1 electric bicycle is a low-speed pedal-assisted electric bicycle. It's equipped with a motor that provides assistance only when the rider is pedaling and ceases to provide assistance when the bicycle reaches the speed of 20 miles per hour. A Class 2 bike is also a low-speed, but it's a throttle-assisted electric bicycle. It's equipped with a motor that may be used exclusively to propel the bicycle and is not capable of providing assistance when the bicycle reaches the speed of 20 miles an hour. A Class 3 electric bicycle or speed pedal-assisted electric bicycle is a bicycle equipped with a motor that provides assistance only when the rider is pedaling and ceases to provide assistance when the bicycle reaches the speed of 28 miles an hour, and it's equipped with a speedometer. So this is the class system, so when you hear about Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3 e-bikes, this is what they're referring to. In the state's definition, all of these are considered bicycles. but only one of these classes two of these classes require human power to run, and that's Class 1 and Class 3. Currently, COSCA permits the Class 1 e-bike. The Class 3s are prohibited mainly because of the higher speed. Most traditional e-mountain bikes that you see out on the trails are Class 1 e-bikes. There's sort of a diminishing return in power if you're really want to be mountain biking as opposed to be doing something else. What's challenging out on the open space though is sometimes you can't always tell by looking. So here's a quick quiz of which of these is an e-bike. I'll let you answer in your head. We won't go too deep into it. But technically, A is an e-bike. That's a Class 2 bike. It's got a 750 watt motor and a throttle. Number C is your traditional e-mountain bike. That's a Class 1 e-bike. Now, D is questionable because this brand makes the same morphology of a bike in various different powers, so it may or may not be. But generally, they do have throttles on them, so that it could be a Class 2, but it could be something else. While E looks very much like your traditional e-bike, that thing goes 40 miles an hour. The point of showing this is to illuminate the confusion that both we have as potential enforcers of our ordinance, but also for consumers as well. We're not entirely sure most consumers, when they're out shopping for an e-bike, really know what the best bike is to go out on COSCA open space. And I think that's sort of, there's a lot of these bikes that are not technically e-bikes, as the state defines them, but they're marketed as such, so it's pretty confusing. And I'm not sure COSCA is going to illuminate the nation necessarily on this. It's a management challenge that land management agencies throughout the country are kind of wrestling with. Just as kind of a roundup of what electric vehicles are permitted on COSCA property, and the Class 1 e-bikes are considered bicycles as far as we're concerned, and that's based on our subscription to the California Vehicle Code definition. Most electric bikes that are made by established brands are Class 1 e-bikes. We prohibit the Class 2 e-bikes as they don't fit our current definition because they can be run without human power. Class 3 are prohibited due to their speed. Then there's this whole other area of what they call out-of-class electric vehicles. So these are bikes that look very much like an e-bike, but they can be class on demand, which means they don't subscribe to any class. So if they can't commit to a class, then we can't commit to allowing them. But these generally have, they can do throttles at higher speeds, so 28 miles an hour on throttle. So we also do have the electric motorcycles, and this is probably becoming one of our biggest issues on open space, is that we have bikes that, with the definition being 750 watts is the top wattage, but some of these bikes have 3,000 to 6,000 watts, and they're capable of 40, 50 mile an hour speeds. They have big tires and high torque, and they're rough on trails, and they're dangerous to our shared trail users. Other electric vehicles, we've seen them out there. We did see a group of 5 electric unicycles. You don't see that every day. There's these one-wheel vehicles, skateboards, hoverboards, and scooters. Not a whole lot of those. I think what we're seeing that's the toughest for us are these electric motorcycles. Just some of the impacts we see from non-permitted vehicles, we've been experiencing a lot more calls on reports of trail use conflicts, and this is when a higher speed vehicle and a hiker or a horse meet. And these are potentially dangerous, and the rangers do get calls on these. Increased vehicle speeds do expose other trail users to danger. COSCA's trails are multi-use trails, so we share them with horses and hikers. So moderating speed is important. Like I said before, high torque plus big tires equals trail damage. We're also seeing a proliferation of illegal jump track construction, trail alteration, and environmental damage. Some of this we believe to be linked with some of these higher power vehicles, although not exclusively. Now we have no doubt that these vehicles are really fun. So it's not that we don't recognize fun. We just think that they're more appropriate for areas that are designated for them. In terms of trail damage, COSCA manages 170 miles of trails, and we have 10 rangers right now. And honestly, it's a tall order to keep up with what we're doing. And that's why we welcome our mountain biking community to become involved, because we have a lot to do, and we could use some help. So what's COSCA working on now? We're generally working to try and educate consumers about how to select the proper e-bike for COSCA trails. Honestly, we think the Class 1 e-bike, mountain bike, is a really fun vehicle. The research on them shows that they don't cause any additional trail damage than a regular bike. And average speeds, while most people think that an e-bike is doing a whole lot faster, they're generally not. In fact, the research on these show that the downhill speeds of an electric mountain bike are somewhat slower than the regular non-electrified bike, and that's probably just due to the nimbleness of a bike that doesn't weigh 50 pounds. We've worked with a nationwide group of bicycle advocates, such as IMBA, the International Mountain Biking Association, and Trails Are Common Ground, and People for Bikes, to put together this flyer. There's a copy in your board package. But this is an e-bike buyer's guide that kind of goes through the different types of bikes and where they're most likely to be allowed. So the essential thing here is they do recommend that before people buy an electric bike, that they contact their local land management agencies and just find out what's allowed. We've been doing some social media outreach. We've prepared a page on COSCA's website that discusses electric bikes and which vehicles are allowed. We have been deconstructing a lot of illegal jump tracks and trail alterations. And I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is, if people want to buy an electric bike to ride on our trails, we recommend people go to one of our fine local retailers, because our local retailers know what's allowed, and I think they can help people pick the best bike for what they want to do out on the trails. Recommended actions going forward. We're recommending that we update the language used in the COSCA ordinance to include the permitted e-bikes. It's a term everybody's using now, and just to be specific, we should include some language in our policy that makes this clear. We'll continue public outreach to inform consumers about how to pick the best bike, and we'll work with local legislative efforts to better define power electric vehicle types. And part of the legislation is there is legislation being introduced to develop some classifications for some of these other vehicles. A lot of the vehicles that are being driven around town, like these little motorcycles, aren't street legal. So that becomes an issue too, just for our local policing and safety. So I hope this primer has helped you understand how COSCA views electric vehicles and our policy, and we look forward to coming to you in May with some proposed ordinance language updates we don't see the need to change a policy right now. Today, we do allow the Class 1 electric mountain bike, based on its definition, is because it's still essentially human powered. You got to pedal it to go, and it meets the power requirements. We just want to make this more explicit. So with that, I can take any questions.
Questions of staff? Yes, Director Nichols.
Yes, thank you. I do have a few questions. Thank you, Mr. Stark, for that. I just was curious, looking at the various models of e-bikes that you had listed there, or shown in the photo. Is there any correlation between bikes that look like a mountain bike, or bikes that look like a road bike, or bikes that look like a BMX bike, as far as what class they're in, or is it really just across the board?
Well, I think that's the general confusion here, is they're across the board, although some look very much like motorcycles. So those seem fairly obvious, and the speed at which they ride makes them identifiable. I think your differences between say a Class 1 and a Class 2 bike, at sight from a distance, it's hard to identify. So it does present issues in terms of trying to enforce the ordinances. Right now, COSCA's enforcement priority isn't so much about trying to split the difference between a Class 1 and a Class 2 bike. The issues that we have that are more concerning for visitor safety are the motorcycles.
Okay, and then another question I had, I read recently that there was legislation passed at the state level to encourage e-bikes to use trails, and that there was, I don't know if this was actually passed or introduced, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, where it was to allow people to gain access more to trail use, and so therefore it was trying to keep local agencies from restricting this use. Are you familiar with that, or did you hear about that?
Yeah, so that's past legislation. I haven't read it in detail. It's my understanding it was mostly directed at federal agency lands, but we'll have to do some more digging in on it. I don't think it actually precludes COSCA from setting those rules.
Okay, yeah, as long as we have our ability to control that. And then the last thing I had was, do we have any posted speed limits on any trails as far as, hey, don't go this fast, or beyond that? Or is it just...
We don't. Our guidance policies don't lead us to oversign things, so we don't do too much. We do believe it would be helpful to have some signage at the trailheads that inform people about the allowed vehicles. For 45 years, COSCA has depended on the community working together with the various user groups to ride and use the trails respectfully of each other. And it's worked. We are seeing increased numbers of bicyclists on the open space. I think COVID made a lot of people discover the beauty of the outdoors and how much fun mountain biking really is. In the grand scheme of things, that's a really good thing. That's great for community health, and I don't want it to sound like we don't want mountain bikers, because we like mountain bikers, and most of us mountain bike ourselves. So I think we need to double down on our community education, and there's a new generation of people that maybe didn't grow up with this idea of sharing. So, we hope to, keep communicating with our trail use community. We like that so much of our trail use community is here tonight, that we can communicate directly with you. But we think that a lot of this is not so much about, at the end of the day, when we're talking bikes, it's not so much about what bike someone's on. It's about the courtesy with which they ride it. And at the end of the day, I think that's what makes the difference. I think education is our biggest future effort here. Standing out with a ticket book is probably not the most immediately beneficial item.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I encountered some young boys, probably, junior higher age or so, riding the motorcycle version of e-bikes in one of our local parks and just enjoying the sidewalks on the park, and pulled right out in the street in front of me, and they didn't know I was there. I didn't know they were coming there, and it was not very pleasant experience, kind of shocking. But you know, that's the territory that we're in right now. And I'm glad you mentioned that about the enforcement, because I know we've talked to Mr. Kuba many times about, you know, how do we enforce our ordinances when this may be a critical issue for some, and yet if you ask the Sheriff's Department to stop by and give us a hand, it's probably not real high on their list of priorities. And so it's a big challenge for us. So appreciate all that we can do, whether it's interacting with our citizenry, particularly the users, or again, those throughout the area. Look forward to hearing what you have to say, but thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I will note that National Park Service recently and state parks recently have permitted Class 1 e-bikes, and the MRCA amended our ordinance to also permit Class 1 e-bikes on trails. Sort of it recognizing it's a trend that the tidal wave was coming. There was no holding it back.
Well, uniformity between the management agencies is actually really important, because a lot of our trails intersect, and we don't need somebody coming off of ours and going into another jurisdiction and all of a sudden not knowing what's happening.
Precisely.
So it's a good thing.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Director Engler.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Stark, thank you for the good presentation.
Yeah.
It's been a source of pride, I think, in the Conejo that we have the shared use trails. You know, I'm not a mountain biker, sorry, but I do enjoy the trails as a hiker and have for the last 25 years. So I'm curious if we're able to come up with some designation of, you know, included as a Class 1. Are we going to still rely on enforcement by the general public? How are we going to enforce that rule?
Well, I think, as I mentioned in response to Director Nichols, educating the consumer about buying the right bike and educating the community about, you know, what bikes are allowed is our first line here. Our policies, you know, part of the value of having that policy is, I mean, we hope nobody ever gets injured from, you know, a bike that doesn't belong. But, you know, when that happens, if, you know, we want our policies to support the injured parties if someone's riding a bike that's not permitted. We may, with our, you know, our ranger force is out there, and they do interact with these riders pretty often, you know, and they're usually, you know, counseled on what's allowed. We don't, like I mentioned before, we're not sure standing out with the ticket book is the answer here. We hope our local biking community will support our policies and that they can be kind of self-enforcing for the most part.
Yeah, I think my experience with cyclists, bikes on trails has been nothing but cordial. It's great, and I love seeing the multi-use. Is there a plan in place, or you have any ideas of how we're going to get the word out to all of our trail users as to how we're going to update our interactions?
So we're working, the same group that we worked with to develop that buyer's guide is now working on a community education guide that can go both on the enforcement end to policing agencies, and also trying to reach young people through the school system. You know, a lot of this is just, you know, ensuring that everybody knows what they're buying. But yeah, we'll continue to do outreach, and to the extent that we can get assistance from other community groups. I think you know, for us, you know, we may not reach everybody through, you know, the COSCA social channels or our website, but we think broadening the scope of our messengers will be a big part of that.
I think we have probably, it looks like about 40 messengers here in the room, which is a good thing to see.
Coming up on capacity here.
So maybe expanding the Bike Bell program that COSTAC and the Open Space Foundation promote, I know I think it's been a challenge keeping the bell boxes stocked. The idea is you use the bell and then you put it back when you end your.
Well, frequent bikers do hold on to them, and we know from our what we hear from our trail users is people really do appreciate the bell. We've distributed about 12,500 of them over the last couple years, and we'll just kind of continue to do it because we think it's a fairly effective low-cost program that does improve trail safety.
Yeah, just from a personal user's viewpoint, I hike, and to hear the bell coming tells me, okay, I got a bike coming, great. It's really a good heads up to the hikers. I know when I have done mountain biking, you think you're making a lot of noise, but to the hikers, they don't hear you. So those bells make a big difference. So just a little feedback to everybody.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stark. Any other questions or comments from board members? Yes, Director Newman.
Thank you, Chair. Is there any sort of training specifically aimed at e-bike riders as opposed to mountain bike riders in general?
Not that I'm currently aware of, but I have heard that some of our local retailers have considered putting on e-bike clinics, and I think that's a positive thing. I think just interacting with consumers, and the first time you get on an e-bike, it's kind of a trip. It's a different kind of vehicle, and there's a reason why they say don't use the turbo mode on a single track, because that thing will buck like a horse if in the right conditions. So I think rider safety is a good idea. I don't know what's happening with our schools now. When I was a kid, we had bike rodeos at school, but I don't know that many high school kids are riding electric bikes so much. They're really expensive, and kids have a lot of energy, and they're good pedaling.
Right. And schools like Newbury Park and other places have done a terrific job of teaching MTB skills. The reason I'm asking, just as a personal observation, my perception is that e-bike riders as a group tend to have a lower skill level than mountain bike riders, particularly because it's perceived, I don't know if this is valid or not, but it's perceived as a lower barrier to entry, where mountain biking can be a lot of work.
Our mountain bikers are laughing.
I hope in agreement.
Well, I think it's true that I think it's a mixed bag, because a lot of people who are riding the electric mountain bikes are longtime experienced mountain bikers that have kind of aged out and may have physical limitations. So in that respect, I think there are some very skilled electric mountain bike riders.
And I'm not saying it in a derogatory way.
But I think you're also right that in general, a lot of the e-bikes we're seeing on the streets and stuff are people who, maybe they never thought to ride a bike until they could get one that helped them out.
Exactly.
So I think we do have inexperienced cyclists in the community. I'm just not sure they're focusing on the mountain bike, because I think.
So if there are opportunities to help in skill development with e-bikers, I think that would be
I think it's a great
good
idea.
thing to look at.
I don't know that COSCA has the capacity to do that, or if we're the right group to be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But perhaps some group of our local retailers or other community groups, any community group can have an event that brings people together to make our community safer. So we would support such an effort.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. That was very elucidating. Let's go on to COSCA Volunteer Corps activity. Okay. Is that you, Ms. Hubert?
Thank you, Chair Skay, and members of the board. Good evening. I have a brief PowerPoint. Our Trail Watch and Adopt a Trail volunteers logged the following hours since we last met. So for November and December of 2022, Trail Watch had 56 reports and 77 hours donated, and Adopt a Trail had 48 reports and 64 hours donated. That brings our total for 2022 to 398 reports and 655 hours for Trail Watch, and 329 reports and 486 hours for Adopt a Trail. And for 2023, we're off to a really great start despite all the rain we had this month. So the totals for January, Trail Watch are 32 reports and 47 hours, and Adopt a Trail volunteers logged 34 reports and 38 hours. We really appreciate the efforts of our dedicated volunteers, as their work is integral to our open space management and stewardship efforts. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Brian, who will update you about a special volunteer project that he's been working on.
So I had the pleasure last weekend to spend a Saturday morning with students from the Oak Park High School Wildfire Prevention and Restoration Club, and we went out with about 7 people out in the Lang Ranch area and planted about 600 acorns to re-oak the areas that burnt in the Woolsey fire. This is actually a photo from last year where our volunteers are admiring a patch of oaks that came from our first year acorn planting. I went out expecting to plant in the area we went to first about 4 years ago. Was our first planting with the club, and I hadn't actually ever been out to see what happened to it, and I figured we'd have to go out and replant it again. When we went there, there's a forest of young oak trees coming up about 3 feet tall. So those were areas that had very high burn intensity during the Woolsey fire, and where we did lose a high number of mature oak trees. So it's exciting to see. Well, we have new generations of acorn planters and new generations of trees at the same time, and it's an uplifting activity, and we're really appreciative of the Oak Park High School Club.
That's fantastic. Any other comments or questions? No, our volunteers are absolutely the lifeblood of COSCA. All the volunteers in so many venues and activities. It's just been fantastic. So thank you all. Let's go to Ranger Operations and Maintenance. That would be Mr. Krupa.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, new members. Before I start my slideshow, I'm going to preface this because there's a couple pictures in here that might be upsetting to some of the attendees. So, anyway, so for the new members, I end every slideshow with a sunset, but I get to start this one with a sunrise and a beautiful rainbow from a couple weeks ago, and we really needed it. The trails needed it. The plants needed it. So we're working on cleaning up after a lot of that. That's Lake Eleanor. I don't think it's breached the dam in 10 or 15 years. I don't remember. I think I was a ranger when it breached last time. So, but the channel that we cut in years ago, closest to you on the right side, has really kept the water level lower. It got to a lower level much faster with that. So the work that we've done in clearing the spillway really paid off in the water flow. So we're going to continue doing that. When the water's down, we continue to pull out the cattails and tules and such. This is on the, I believe, the Los Robles Trail. A lot of water came through the town in a short period of time, created quite a few ruts through the town. And go ahead, Brian. So that's one of the repairs on, I can't tell which trail, possibly Rosewood. But, and then this is actually Los Robles Trail. Rangers moved in 10 ton of rock to fill in that hole, and then top dressed it with local soils. A lot of work, but we have this to look forward to, and some of these are popping up already, and I highly recommend getting out at a slower pace than mountain bikes and get to see the flowers that are out there, because it's going to be a spectacular spring, so live it up. Okay, this is the one. So Brian alluded to it. We've had a lot of jumps and stuff being built on open space, and it's quite damaging to the open space. It's damaging to the plants, the trails, and everything. It is a felony. This one was especially a felony level. It took 6 rangers more than 2 days to clean this up. We've rehabbed it with seeds and overseeded it, and hopefully it comes back a bit. And so that's been a lot of this early winter time for the rangers, has been doing that. Earlier this year, we started using a program called Asana for tracking work for the rangers. If any of you are into math, you notice that the X and Y axis don't really have a lot of information on it. It's just some really cool things that go up. This is the first graph that we developed after this year. Stick with us next year. We're going to have some better graphs to show you what having the newer rangers on with us are doing, and you're going to see some really good numbers and better X and Y axis definitions.
I might just interject, Matt, since those are really hard to read. I'll just say that the Rangers completed 342 log tasks, and the really tall one there is the trail work one. The lowest one next to it's kind of our interpretive education one, just for reference.
Very good. Yeah, and we're excited about that. We do have our trail work day coming up. It will be in Wildwood. And that's our tool cache or part of our tool cache for Trail Work Day. The main part of the work will be the Santa Rosa Trail. There was quite a bit of washout up there, and the geotextile underneath the soil has come to light, so we're going to be moving soil up to there and packing that in. And we're also going to be defining the Moonridge Trail and the Stagecoach Trail. And as Brian mentioned, our interpretive little graph column was the smallest one, so we're going to start a volunteer training. We're going to be using current COSCA board members as the guinea pigs for the next couple months, trying to figure out if we're doing it right. It'll give a history of COSCA, basic ecology, birds, plants, Shumash, trail ethics, and I'm excited about it because that's my past, and I want to see it come here to COSCA, and we now have the ranger staff abilities to be able to do that. So I'm beyond excited about it. And there's your sunset. And typically that cloud pattern means that rain's coming, but that was before the rain, so it came true. I'm available for questions.
Questions of Mr. Kuba? Yes, Director Nichols.
Thank you for the update, Mr. Kuba. Appreciate that. I'm sure there was a lot more flooding repairs that you needed to take care of, but some of the highlights, appreciate that. When you mentioned the trail work day, it reminded me of comments that one of our speakers mentioned about, trying to get additional work days. And I know from past experience, the mountain bike group probably do more to the trails that need repairs than anybody else, but they're also the most active in repairing the trails more than anybody else. So appreciate their ongoing efforts. Is there opportunities to get what I'll just call a guided work trail for a select group where you have a small task with a small group that's trustworthy, only maybe takes a ranger or two as opposed to the whole cadre? Is that something you've ever attempted in the past? Is that an option in the future? Just your thoughts on that.
In some of the pre-meetings prior to this, we did discuss it. The Rangers are all California State trail trained, as am I, for trail construction design. And we're going to put on a little miniature trail maintenance program in the springtime, and we've talked about inviting some of these folks out for that. Also, part of the naturalist or the volunteer training, we're also planning on doing monthly work parties throughout the year. We don't have those lined out yet, but that's in the beginning stages. And I've always felt comfortable if you get a trail boss, somebody that's trained and has participated and shown their abilities, then allowing them to do work is appropriate. So we do hope that comes forward.
Perfect. And did I see a chocolate lily in your presentation there?
Yes.
You're going to have to show me where those are at. I'm still waiting to see one live and in person. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm not going to say it here because everybody will go. Yeah. The chocolate lily super bloom.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much, Matt.
Sure.
As always, fabulous pictures. Okay. Let's see, do we have any updates from Mr. Friedel or Tim?
I actually do have a very brief update. I tend to, although we're the CRPD side, I try to sort of stick to things that are relevant to both the city and CRPD. Just because it happened last night, I have to share that the chair of the CRPD board, Chuck Huffer, next to me here, was named the Ventura County Special District's Director of the Year last night. And so, yeah. So there's 10 cities in Ventura County, but there's 25 special districts. So that's a feat. That's pretty cool, Chuck. But I also wanted to mention on March 10th, because I think we have a handful of people here that might be interested. March 10th, we're having the grand sort of reopening of the teen center and the backyard. And I got a skate park and a band like area and stuff. But Sitting on Stacy, it's a band, a couple kids from Newbury Park. They've done opening for sort of national touring acts and stuff. So they're going to be playing. It's free. So I'm hoping we kind of get the teen center going again. So it's a several $1 million improvement. The backyard's pretty awesome now. So
That's great.
that's it.
Thank you. Tim, anything to report? No? Okay. Let's see. Any other board member comments on matters not on the agenda?
Just a quick comment. I'm very happy to be on this board. It's been an interest of mine for a number of years. Back to the days when I was on COSCA, helping do trails and that sort of thing. Really looking forward to working with all of you and enhancing this jewel we call our open space. So looking forward to it.
Thank you, Director Engler. Yeah. Okay, yes, Director
Yeah,
Nichols.
and I was going to welcome our new board members, although they have a lot of experience. Mr. Engler's been with the city council for a while. Mr. Newman is new to our city council, so welcome to the city council as well. But he's a long-term planning commissioner and knows the city very well. And he's also a road bicyclist. So he knows about intermodal transportation. So glad to have you both on board. Welcome.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Do we have a need for a closed session tonight?
Yes, we do,
Yes,
Chair.
we-
Thank you.
All right, would you read us into that, please?
Sure. Before we convene to closed session, I just want to report that we'll be discussing one item in closed session. It's conference with real property negotiators, and it's identified in the agenda. Thank you.
Right, thank you. And we will, are we going to another room, or are we, okay, we will do that. So adjournment will be after the closed session, and there's no other business.